1952. The air inside the Lockheed Advanced Development Programs facility in Burbank, California is thick with cigarette smoke, the scent of hot vacuum tubes, and the wake of secrets. This is the place they call the Skunk Works, a name born from a comic strip, a joke whispered about a place where the work is no laughing matter. This is the crucible of the Cold War, a windowless fortress where the future of American air and space dominance is being forged in absolute secrecy. Outside, the nation is gripped by fears of atomic annihilation and the looming threat of Soviet technological supremacy. The sky is a frontier of anxiety. But inside this room, it is a problem set, a series of equations waiting to be solved. And at a desk, surrounded by men in identical white shirts and dark ties, sits Mary Golda Ross. She is the only woman on this elite team of 40 engineers. She is the only Native American. A proud citizen of the Cherokee Nation and the great-great-granddaughter of the legendary Chief John Ross, Mary brings a legacy of resilience and intellectual rigor into this sanctum of classified engineering. Her tools are not yet the humming mainframes that will come to define a later era. They are a finely calibrated slide rule, a hefty electromechanical Friden calculator that clatters and whirs with each operation, and, most importantly, her mind. A mind that sees the universe not as a void, but as a grand, intricate system of forces and vectors. While the public looks up at the stars and dreams of science fiction, Ross is laying the literal groundwork to make in reality. She is crunching the numbers that will dictate the behavior of machines that do not yet exist. Her calculations focus on the terrifying and exhilarating challenges of the time. The trajectories for intercontinental ballistic missiles, weapons designed to arc through the upper atmosphere at hypersonic speeds, and the even more complex physics of putting the first American satellites into a stable Earth orbit. This is not abstract mathematics. Every calculation she makes has immense, tangible stakes. A miscalculation in orbital insertion could mean a billion-dollar satellite becomes a useless piece of space junk, or worse, burns up on re-entry. An error in a missile's flight path could have catastrophic geopolitical consequences. The pressure is immense, a constant silent hum beneath the noise of the calculators. Yet, Ross works with a quiet, focused intensity that commands the respect of her colleagues. They see her not as an anomaly, but as a formidable intellectual asset, a mind capable of untangling the thorniest problems of celestial mechanics. They call her to consult on questions of hydrodynamics for submarine-launched missiles and the stability of high-speed aircraft. But outside these classified walls, she is invisible. The newspapers are filled with the names of astronauts and mission controllers, male figures who will become the public face of the space race. The heroes of this new age are being chosen, and they do not look like Mary Golda Ross. Her contribution, the foundational mathematical architecture upon which the entire American space program would be built, is buried under layers of national security clearance and systemic cultural blindness. Her name, her face, her Cherokee heritage, all are rendered non-existent to the very public whose future she is meticulously designing. The world celebrates the roar of the rocket engine, completely oblivious to the silent, persistent scratch of the pencil that told the rocket where to go. We are left with a profound and unsettling question. How could the work of one of the chief architects of the space age, the very person charting humanity's path to the stars, remain so utterly, deafeningly unknown? Following that veil of secrecy, we delve into the tangible proof of her genius, locked away for decades in dusty archives. When we unseal what declassified Lockheed reports and technical memoranda from the 1950s and 60s, the silence is finally broken by the clear, authoritative language of mathematics. Here, in these brittle pages filled with dense equations and elegant graphs, we find the mind of Mary Golda Ross at work. Her mastery of orbital mechanics, a discipline then so new it was practically being invented in real time, is breathtaking. This wasn't just about plotting a simple arc. She was wrestling with the universe's most complex variables, the subtle gravitational pull of the sun and moon that could tug a satellite off course over time, the faint but persistent drag of the Earth's upper atmosphere, and the planet's own imperfect shape, not a perfect sphere, but a slightly flattened oblate spheroid whose gravitational inconsistencies had to be accounted for with painstaking precision. Her calculations were the lifeblood of one of the most critical pieces of hardware in the early space age, the Agena rocket stage. The Agena wasn't the giant, famous booster that lifted off from the launch pad. It was the smaller, smarter upper stage that did the most delicate work. It was the vehicle that fired in the vacuum of space to place a satellite into its final, precise orbit. It was the backbone of America's first spy satellite program, Corona, which provided crucial intelligence throughout the Cold War. It was the vehicle that sent the Ranger and Mariner probes on their pioneering journeys to the Moon, Venus, and Mars. Ross's work ensured the Agena could perform these complex orbital maneuvers flawlessly. Her papers show her modeling its flight paths, calculating fuel consumption for multi-stage burns, and solving the formidable problems of achieving a stable, predictable orbit. This was the mathematical blueprint for America's eyes in the sky and its first robotic emissaries to other worlds. This wasn't just theoretical. These were the numbers that determined whether a mission succeeded or failed, whether a billion-dollar investment yielded priceless knowledge or simply vanished into the void. Yet, as we trace her name through these documents, a pattern of systemic resistance emerges. Her contributions, while clearly foundational, are often subtly minimized. In co-authored papers, a common practice in large engineering teams, her name might appear second or third, even when her core calculations formed the project's foundation. The institutional culture of the 1950s aerospace industry, overwhelmingly white and male, simply did not have a framework for celebrating a Native American woman as a lead architect of celestial navigation. The system was not designed to see her, let alone credit her. This was not necessarily a conscious, malicious conspiracy. It was something far more insidious. It was the quiet, pervasive hum of bias, the reflexive assumption that the men in the room were the primary drivers of innovation. Her brilliance was utilized, but her identity was erased. The credit flowed, as it always had, along the well-worn channels of gender and race. The broader scientific community, reading the published reports and hearing the conference presentations, rarely saw her name highlighted or her specific role celebrated. They saw the result, a successful launch, a functioning satellite, and attributed it to the team, which, in the public imagination, was always led by a man. This leaves us to wonder, as we stare at these elegant equations that touch the stars, who, in that era, truly understood the magnitude of the silent calculations that would soon propel humanity beyond the cradle of Earth. Building on those intricate calculations, the impact of Mary Golda Ross's work rippled outward, becoming part of the very DNA of American space exploration. Her foundational math on orbital mechanics and vehicle trajectories didn't just launch the Agena. It created a bedrock of knowledge that directly informed the development of every major space initiative that followed. When NASA engineers began plotting the complex multi-stage journeys for the Gemini and Apollo programs, they were standing on the shoulders of pioneers like Ross. The complex orbital rendezvous and docking maneuvers practiced in the Gemini program, which were absolutely essential for the success of the lunar missions, relied on the very principles of celestial mechanics that Ross had helped codify for the Agena. The math she perfected for sending probes to Mars and Venus was the direct precursor to the sophisticated gravity assist calculations used to design the Apollo mission trajectories and, later, the breathtaking grand tour of the outer planets undertaken by the Voyager probes. She was part of a small secret group that was, in her own words, taking the theoretical and making it real. For decades, this legacy remained largely hidden, a story known only to a handful of her direct colleagues. The official histories of the space program were written, the documentaries were filmed, and the museums were built, all with her chapter missing. The reckoning, when it came, was slow and quiet, driven not by a single explosive revelation, but by the persistent, careful work of historians, archivists, and advocates. Organizations like the Society of Women Engineers and the American Indian Science and Engineering Society began collecting oral histories. Researchers at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum began combing through the archives, connecting the dots in declassified documents and piecing together the true extent of her influence. They found a woman who not only performed groundbreaking calculations, but also actively recruited other women and Native Americans into the sciences, serving as a mentor and role model long before the term hidden figure entered the popular lexicon. Slowly, the picture came into focus. Mary Golda Ross didn't just solve equations, she designed the very possibility of space travel as we know it. Her mind built the invisible architecture that carried humanity to the moon and beyond. Her story forces us to confront a powerful truth. History is not a static record, but an active process of remembering. And for too long, we have chosen to remember selectively. The restoration of her legacy is a victory, but it is an incomplete one. It begs a final, urgent question. As we look at the incredible technologies that shape our modern world, from GPS navigation that relies on the precise satellite orbit she first calculated, to the medical breakthroughs in climate science built on data from space, we must ask, what other silent architects are still waiting for their moment in the spotlight? Whose contributions are woven into the very fabric of our lives, their names still uncelebrated, their stories still waiting to be told?